Hello students, I am Dr. Priyanka, Assistant Professor in Physics, Government College for Women, Shahzadpur, Ambala. Today we'll be discussing about electric field, and the topics covered are electric field as gradient of electric potential, differential form of Gauss law, Poisson and Laplace equation, mechanical force per unit area of a charge conducting surface. These topics are a part of Unit 1 Vector Background and Electric Field of Paper 2 Electricity, Magnetism and Electromagnetic Theory. This paper is taught to BSc first semester students. So before I begin, let us recall few important terms. Del operator. In my previous lectures, we have discussed in detail about the operation of del operator on a vector and a scalar field. When del operator operates on a vector field, it gives us divergence of that vector field and curl of that vector field. And when del operates on a scalar function, it gives us gradient of that scalar function. You can note down the formulas on the screen. So let us begin with the lecture. The first topic is electric field as gradient of an electric potential. Before I begin with the derivation, let us recall the definition of electric field. It is defined as force per unit charge. Now let us start with the derivation. For that, we'll consider a potential in a region of space. Look at this image. This is the image of a positive point charge whose electric line of forces are radiating outwards from the charge. The concentric circles are the equipotential surface drawn on the electric line of forces. I marked 2 points P and Q on the different equipotential surface. As we go from point P to Q, the potential will change. Now, the P and Q points are dr distance apart. The potential at point P is V and the potential at point Q is V plus dV. This shows that as we move from point P to Q, the potential will change by small amount dV. From our knowledge of differentiation, we can write dV as curly V by curly x dx plus curly V by curly y dy plus curly V by curly z dz, which is written in equation number 1. Here, curly V by curly x, curly V by curly y, curly V by curly z represents the rate of change of potential along x, y, z. We also know that electric field is written as minus dV by dr. So from here we can write dV as minus E dot dr, which is equation number 2. Now I substitute the value of dV from equation number 2 to equation number 1 and we get equation number 3. Now this equation number 3 can be expanded as, here you can see on the right hand side I have written two terms, the dot product of two terms. The second term is dx I cap plus dy j cap plus dz k cap. This is nothing but the displacement dr. For the details in how this term is expanded, you can watch my previous lectures. Now the first term on RH side is nothing but gradient of potential V. So on substituting the values, we come to equation number 7. In equation number 7, we can see minus E dot dr is equal to gradient of V dot dr, or we can finally write E equal to negative gradient of V, or we can say electric field intensity at any point is the negative gradient of electric potential at that point. In terms of magnitude, we can recall the physical significance of a gradient of a scalar function, which is the gradient V gives the direction of maximum change in V. This maximum change can be increasing or decreasing. Since we have a negative sign, it indicates that the electric field points towards the steepest lowering of potential or maximum decreasing potential. I repeat again, the negative sign indicates that electric field points towards the steepest lowering of potential or maximum decreasing potential. Since potential is a scalar function, this approach is very useful in calculating electric field. Let us do one numerical. In this numerical, we'll find electric field from a potential V. Here, V is given as Q upon 4 pi epsilon naught R. To find electric field from this potential, we'll differentiate V with respect to R. And on differentiation, we find the magnitude of electric field equal to Q upon 4 pi epsilon naught into 1 by R square. So you can see it becomes very simple using this formula to find electric field from potential. Now, before I begin with the Gauss law, let us first define electric flux. Electric flux is nothing but the surface integral of a vector field. In the image shown here, we have a positive charge Q enclosed inside the surface S, and electric line of forces are radiating outwards from this charge. If I need to calculate the flux, it will simply be the surface integral of the electric field. Now, according to Gauss law, this flux is nothing but charge enclosed upon epsilon naught. Here, epsilon naught is the permittivity of the free space. Charge enclosed is the total charge inside the surface S. In our case, we can replace Qin with Q. So, according to Gauss law, the total flux emerging out from a closed surface is equal to the product of sum of enclosed charge by the surface and the constant 1 by epsilon naught. So with this Gauss law, we can find the electric field for symmetrical charge distribution. Before I move further, let us first derive the differential form of Gauss law. For that, we'll consider the distribution of charge Q uniformly in a volume V, which is enclosed by surface S. Since the charge is distributed over the whole volume, in this case we'll define a volume charge density rho such that the total charge now is given as the volume integral of the volume charge density. Then, according to Gauss law, the total flux coming out of this closed surface will be charge upon epsilon naught. Now this total charge we can write as the volume integral of the volume charge density. So now according to Gauss law, total flux is given by equation 1, which is the surface integral of electric field is equal to 1 by epsilon naught into the volume integral of the volume charge density rho. Now in equation number 1, on the one side we have surface integral and on the other side we have volume integral. So to bring uniformity, we need to convert the surface integral to the volume integral. We can do this using Gauss divergence theorem. This theorem I have discussed in my previous lecture in details. Here I have written Gauss divergence theorem in terms of electric field vector E. So the equation is the surface integral of electric field is equal to the the volume integral of the divergence of electric field. So using equation 2, we can substitute the surface integral of electric field with the volume integral of divergence of electric field, which gives us this final equation. So we come to the equation in which we have on left hand side the volume integral of divergence of electric field, and on the right hand side we have product of 1 by epsilon naught with the volume integral of volume charge density. Now since we have the volume integral of on the both sides, we can take the right hand side to the left hand side. and now we can put the terms in the bracket equal to 0, which gives us final differential form of Gauss law, which is divergence of electric field is equal to rho by epsilon naught. Or we can say that the divergence of electric field at any point is just the measure of charge density there. This equation is very helpful in measuring the volume charge density for a given electric field. Now let us begin with the application of Gauss law. Gauss law is used to find electric field of a uniform charge distribution. So before we apply Gauss law for a given distribution of charge, we need to consider the symmetry, whether the distribution of the charge is spherical or it is along the length of the wire or it is distributed over a surface. After identifying the symmetry, we can choose a suitable Gaussian surface. Then after choosing a suitable Gaussian surface, our work becomes easier and we simply have to find out the flux. Now how to choose this Gaussian surface? The Gaussian surface should be chosen in such a way that at every point of the surface, the magnitude of electric field is either 0 or it is uniform. Second point is that at every point on the surface, the electric field strength is either parallel or perpendicular to the surface. I am sure you are able to recall this point easily from your previous classes. Now let us apply this to find electric field due to line charge or long charged wire. Here in the image you can see a positive charge is uniformly distributed over the length of the wire. Since the charge is distributed over the length of the wire, we here define linear charge density lambda, which is nothing but charge per unit length. Then according to Gauss law, the flux is simply Qin upon epsilon naught, which we have discussed earlier also. So now we need to apply this Gauss law to this problem. For that, we first need to choose the suitable Gaussian surface. For a linear charge distribution, suitable Gaussian surface is a cylindrical Gaussian surface. As you can see, I have drawn an imaginary cylinder of length L and radius R around this linear charge distribution. Now this cylinder has three surfaces, 1, 2 and 3. Here the red arrows are giving the direction of electric field emerging from the positive charges. I have shown the electric line of forces only on the one side, but it will be same on the other side also. The green arrows representing the area vector from the respective surfaces. I take a point P on the surface 2 and I draw a small area element ds around this point. The area vector for this area element is pointed with the green arrow. So now we need to calculate the flux through this cylindrical Gaussian surface. It will be simply the flux through the surface 1 plus the flux through the surface 2 plus flux through the surface 3 as written in equation number 2. Now let us look at the surface 1 and 3 carefully. In the surface 1 you can see that area vector is pointing upward while electric field is perpendicular to this area vector shown in the form of red arrow. So for surface 1, the dot product of electric field with the area will become 0. Similarly is the case for the surface 3. Here also the area vector and electric field are perpendicular to each other, so their dot product will vanish. So in equation number 2, the flux through surface 1 and 3 is simply 0. Now come to the case of the curved surface, that is surface 2. Here at point P you can see the area vector is pointing in the same direction as that of electric field. So we can simply write, in case you can look at the equation number 4, we can simply write that the flux is the surface integral of electric field and the surface is the second surface. which is further equal to Q by epsilon naught. Here we can substitute Q with lambda times L, where lambda here is linear charge density. Since electric field and area vector are in the same direction, their dot product will vanish as the angle between them is 0. So we come to equation number 5. Cos 0 is 1, so we are only left with E ds and its integral. Now electric field is uniform, it will come out of the integration and we'll have simply the integration over the curved surface area of the cylinder, which is nothing but 2 pi RL. So finally we have electric field as, for a linear charge distribution, lambda upon 2 pi epsilon naught R. So here electric field is varying as 1 by R, as you can see in the graph also. With the increase of distance from the wire, the electric field will decrease. Here n is the radial unit vector in the plane perpendicular to the wire. So this is how we can find the electric field using Gauss law. So I have discussed here one of the applications, but we have many. So you can recall the example of uniformly charged infinite plane sheet, uniformly charged spherical shell, and uniformly charged dielectric sphere. In all the three cases, you can see we have chosen a Gaussian surface specific to a problem. In the first case, we have infinite sheet and we have a cylindrical Gaussian surface. Second, we have a charged spherical shell. For that we have spherical Gaussian surface. Similarly, for the last case, uniformly charged dielectric sphere, we have again the spherical Gaussian surface. So these are the examples or the applications of Gauss law. I strongly recommend that you go through the electrostatics chapter of your +2 physics book to understand it better. Now let us come to Poisson and Laplace equation. Here we relate potential to the charge density. So let us first write the differential form of Gauss law, which is nothing but divergence of V equal to rho by epsilon naught. Here rho is volume charge density and epsilon naught is permittivity of the free space or absolute permittivity. This is given in equation number 1. In equation 2, I have written by definition the electric field is negative gradient of the potential. Now from equation 2, we can substitute the value of electric field in equation number 1, which gives us del dot brackets minus gradient of V equal to rho by epsilon naught. We can rewrite this equation as, we can take the negative sign to the right hand side and we can take the del out of the brackets. So we have del dot del bracket V equal to minus rho by epsilon naught. This del dot del is a Laplacian operator and it is written as del square. Laplacian operator is a mathematical operation defined as the divergence of the gradient of a function. So finally we can write del square V equal to minus rho by epsilon naught. This is Poisson equation in SI unit. We also have Poisson equation written in CGS unit as del square V equal to minus 4 pi rho. We can expand this equation in terms of Cartesian coordinates as curly square V upon curly x square plus curly square V upon curly y square plus curly square V upon curly z square equal to minus rho by epsilon naught. These are all the three different forms of Poisson equation and are useful in solving numericals. Here we have related potential with the charge density. Now if we have a distribution, charge distribution over surface, then We know in case of conductor the charge is always present on the surface, and inside the conductor the volume charge density is 0. So in such cases we can put rho equal to 0 so that the Poisson equation can be written as del square V equal to 0. This equation is nothing but the Laplace equation. I repeat again, this is the case in which charge is distributed over the surface. For example, in case of conducting body, the volume charge density is 0 at all the points within the volume, as the charge only reside on the surface. So here we can put rho equal to 0 in Poisson equation, and on doing so we can have the Laplace equation, which is nothing but del square V equal to 0. So let us do one numerical. Let us see whether this potential V satisfies Laplace equation or not. So V is given as x square plus y square plus z square. So we'll take the derivative of this V with respect to x, y and z coordinates. We have to double differentiate it. So on double differentiation we'll see that this is not equal to 0. So hence this potential does not satisfy the Laplace equation. So this is just an example to show how you can operate Laplacian operator, or how you can use a Laplacian operator del square. Mechanical force per unit area of a charged conducting surface. This is the last topic of our lecture. So let us start with the explanation. Every element of the charged conductor experiences an outward mechanical force. I repeat, every element of the charged conductor experiences an outward mechanical force. Let us see how. For that, consider a positively charged sphere as shown in the image. Now, we cut a small surface element delta S near to the surface. Now this surface element is very small, such that it is almost linear, as you can see in the image 2 shown below. Here this delta S is nothing but a straight line of positive charges, and for a straight line of positive charges the electric line of forces will be pointing away from the positive charge on both the sides. So if we come to the spherical conductor, you can see E1 is the electric field of this delta S surface element, and for outside it is pointing away from the sphere, and inside the sphere it is pointing inward towards the sphere. So let us take up 2 points P and Q. Point P is lying outside the sphere and point Q is lying within this sphere, and we need to find out the electric field at these 2 points. So as we have discussed, this delta S will have electric field E1 pointing outwards at point P and pointing inwards at point Q, while for the rest of the conductor the electric field is given by E2, which is always pointing outwards. So let us first calculate the magnitude of electric field at point P. Here it will be simply the sum of E1 and E2. As you can see from the image, both are in the same direction. So from the properties of conductor, we know for any conductor electric field at a point outside is sigma by epsilon naught, where sigma is the surface charge density. This is the property of a conductor. So this is given in equation number 1. Now come to point Q. In the image we can see at point Q electric field are pointing in opposite direction. So the total electric field at point Q is 0, and point Q is lying inside the conductor, and inside the conductor, so the electric field is coming out to be 0, which is another property of a conductor. This is shown in equation number 2. And from equation number 2 we can also write E1 is equal to E2. Using this part we can substitute in equation number 1 such that E1 plus E2 is equal to 2E1 equal to 2E2 equal to sigma by epsilon naught, as written in equation number 3. Or we can write E1 equal to E2 equal to sigma upon 2 epsilon naught. This is our equation number 4, which gives us the resultant electric field produced by the charge on the rest of the conductor, and this field is directed outwards. Now this is the electric field which is always acting outward due to the rest of the charge sphere. I again try to emphasize here that this derivation is true for any shape of the conductor, but for simplicity we are deriving it for a spherical shape conductor. Now this means this electric field is pointing outwards, will exert a force on the surface. Now this force can be calculated by simple formula, that is Q times E. This is by definition we know. Here Q can be written as sigma times delta S, where sigma is surface charge density and delta is the area of the area element. And E, as we have calculated in equation number 4, can be written as sigma upon 2 epsilon naught. Now this is the force which is acting outward normal to the surface, and if we simplify it further, we can have this force as sigma square delta S 2 epsilon naught, as in equation number 6. Now if we take delta S to the left hand side below the force, this will become a pressure. So the magnitude of the mechanical force per unit area or the pressure is sigma square upon 2 epsilon naught, as given in equation number 7. As we have told earlier that electric field outside any charge conductor is sigma by epsilon naught, we can use this to substitute for sigma as epsilon naught E. So we put this value of sigma in equation number 7, and finally we have the pressure exerted by a charged conductor as half epsilon naught E square, and this force or pressure is always directed outward normal to the surface. So we can say that surface of the charged conductor is always under electric pressure. Now we have just learned that any charged conductor is exerting a force in the outward direction, force or we can say pressure. So that means that the small area element which we have kept can be moved to certain distance. Let us say that under the effect of that pressure, that area element delta S moves through small displacement or distance delta x. Now we know that pressure exerted by this conductor, charge conductor, is epsilon naught E square by 2, or in terms of force we can write it as epsilon naught E square by 2 times delta S, where delta is the area of the area element. So now we know that this is the force exerted by the charge conductor on this area element, and it has moved this area element through a small distance delta x. So in doing so, it is doing certain amount of work. So that work can be calculated as F times delta x, or it is equal to epsilon naught E square by 2 delta S delta x. Here delta S delta x represents the volume, and we can take this volume to the left hand side, which now becomes work done per unit volume. Work done per unit volume is also equivalent to energy stored per unit volume. So in the final expression we have this energy stored per unit volume as half epsilon naught E square. Energy stored per unit volume is known as energy density. As you can see, this energy density, half epsilon naught E square, is same as the pressure exerted by the conductor. So we can say that the electrostatic pressure is equivalent to the energy density of the electric field immediately outside the conductor. And where this energy goes, this energy can be ascribed to the work which the field does on the conductor in order to make it expand. Okay, so this is the energy expended by the conductor in doing the work in exerting the force on the area element. So this is energy density equal to half epsilon naught E square. So that is all for today. These are the online resources I am using for preparing this lecture. You can also visit these sites to further learn about it. I leave you finally with a quote from Richard Feynman. I would rather have questions that can't be answered than the answer that can't be questioned. So keep questioning and keep finding answers. Thank you. Hello students, I am Dr. Priyanka, Assistant Professor in Physics, Government College for Women, Shahzadpur, Ambala. I am presenting test paper on electric field useful for BSc first students. Multiple choice questions. Question number 1. The surface considered for Gauss law is called A. Closed surface, B. Spherical surface, C. Gaussian surface, D. Plane surface. Question number 2. Which of the following statement is not true about Gauss law? A. Gauss law is true for any closed surface. B. The term Q on the right side of Gauss law includes the sum of all charges enclosed by the surface. C. Gauss law is not useful in calculating electrostatic field for symmetrical system. D. Gauss law is based on inverse square dependence of distance contained in Coulomb law. Question number 3. Total flux across a closed surface enclosing a charge is independent of A. Shape of the closed surface, B. Volume of the enclosure, C. Distribution of the charges within the surface, D. All of the above. Question number 4. The electric field inside a spherical shell of uniform surface charge density is A. 0, B. Constant less than 0, C. Directly proportional to the distance from the center, D. None of these. Question number 5. Which of the following graph shows the variation of electric field due to a hollow spherical conductor of radius r as a function of distance from the center of sphere? Image A. Within the hollow spherical conductor, electric field is 0, and outside the spherical conductor, electric field falls with the distance from the center of sphere. In image B, electric field within the hollow spherical conductor varies linearly with the distance from the center, and outside the hollow spherical conductor it falls with the distance. Option C. Electric field within the hollow spherical conductor increases with the distance from the center, and outside the hollow spherical conductor it is constant. In image D, electric field within the hollow spherical conductor increases with r, and outside the hollow spherical conductor it decreases with the distance from the center of sphere. Question number 6. Which of the following figures represents the electric field lines due to a single negative charge? In image A, electric line of forces are pointing radially outwards. In image B, electric line of forces are pointing radially inwards. In image C, electric line of forces are parallel to each other pointing along negative x-axis. In image D, electric line of forces are parallel pointing along positive x-axis. Question 7. Laplacian is a composite operator that may includes 1. Gradient operation, 2. Divergence operation, 3. Curl operation. Which of the following is true? A. 1 and 2, B. 1 and 3, C. 2 and 3, D. 1, 2 and 3. Question 8. A field line and an equipotential surface are A. Always parallel, B. Always at 90 degree, C. Inclined at any angle theta, D. None of the above. Question 9. For electrostatic fields, energy density is defined as A. Energy per unit charge, B. Energy per unit area, C. Energy per unit volume, D. Energy per volt. Short and long answer question. Question number 1. Deduce the relation electric field equal to negative gradient of potential. Question 2. Consider a potential V equal to K times bracket x square plus y square plus z square, where K is some constant. Show that for a given potential the electric field is radial. Question number 3. Derive differential form of Gauss law. Using Gauss law, derive electric field intensity due to line charge distribution. Question number 4. A rod of length 2.2 meter and radius 3.6 mm carries a negative charge of 3.8 into 10 to the power minus 7 coulomb distributed uniformly over its surface. What is the electric field near the midpoint of the rod at a point on its surface? Question 5. Derive Poisson and Laplace equations. Question 6. Show that mechanical force per unit area experienced by a charged surface is given by pressure P equal to epsilon naught E square by 2, and deduce an expression for energy density of an electrostatic field. Thank you.